I put this up.
Host tools, maybe it's there.
Yeah, you click summary, the meeting question, meeting summary.
Record to computer. No, 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 no. Okay,
Yeah, doesn't
I'll
matter.
have, I'll have to fool around because I don't see it. Apps. No. Okay. So you want to leave the AI companion up?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. I
Okay.
we have a transcript also. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. We
All
deal
right.
with
Yeah,
later.
yeah, we get the transcript too. Yeah, okay. I'll have to kind of play with that a little bit. Okay, so we're going to get going. This is the 1 hour session today, and we're going to be looking at book two, and we're going to start with aphorism 57. And hold it, I got to fix my screen here. And I feel that there's a different tone in these first couple of aphorisms that strikes me as different, maybe more serious. I'm not sure if anybody else felt the same way, but if you did, I'd like it if you'd mention it. So I took this as a bit of a replay of what what he was proposing in The Birth of Tragedy as the difference between the Apollinian and the Dionysian worlds. That's both ways of the artistic impulses. And the Apollinian impulse is to build images and build stories and make things more concrete than they really are. And that reality is something that can't be pinned down. And I was reminded a little bit of Parmenides at the same time, who said that the universe is one, just one thing, and it's unchangeable and unending. And of course, there was a lot of argument in Plato about that. But I get a little whiff of that in here. But basically, I think what he's trying to say is that somebody that thinks that they see reality for what it is no different, really, than the way an artist might see the world, because they're both building images. They're not grasping reality. And I think the suggestion here is that you can't grasp reality. And so I think that's the meaning of the last sentence. We are not nearly as different as you think. And perhaps our goodwill to transcend intoxication is as respectable as your faith that you are altogether incapable of intoxication. And what I found interesting is the intoxication is a characteristic of the Dionysian artistic impulse. And both of these descriptions that he's providing here are escaping intoxication, which is a submission to whatever is coming at you in the real world. So I think this is developing a thought this fairly complex also. And the first three also seem to be related expressions, developing this notion. What do you think? Barbara?
Well, the one thing that he mentions, it's not only that, the realists aren't as realistic as they think, but he says the reason, or at least part of the reason is, in my translation, you still carry around the valuations of things that originate in the passions and loves of former centuries. So he has this idea, I guess, that all the words you use and all the ideas that you use to express whatever it is you're thinking have come from the past, and they're so loaded with um different meanings from different pasts, that there's no way to say that there, like a realist wants to say, well, I'm just here in the moment, I'm looking at what I look at, that's real. But he's saying you can't ever do that.
Well, I don't know. I think he's saying that you can do that, but you have to understand, if you can, what you're doing, which is you are just using those things that have become so useful because everybody understands most of it. You've inherited all of that from the past. You're almost driven to do it. I think that's what 58 is really about. You have no choice but to do that. But use like the mountain and the cloud. And this was what made me think of Parmenides. The mountain, as a brief description, is just a deformation of a flat landscape. The mountain is not a thing in itself. It's part of the contiguous nature of everything that is visible. The universe itself, existence, is just one thing. And so the cloud, even the cloud, we call it a cloud, but a cloud is just a pile of moisture somewhere up in the sky, and it's just going to move or disappear or something like that. They are part of the one thing. He may not be, I'm not sure that he's saying that, but it reminded me of that. So if you call it a mountain, that's not what it is in any kind of reality. It's just what you're identifying, this deformation of the landscape. You are making it into a thing. It's not a thing itself. Jason.
I think here he is making fun or against the realist. And then I'm glad that you tie this one to Apollonian and Dionysian, because the opposite of realist to him is the person who intoxication, right? So, or dreamer, okay? So use your feeling. So he said, the realist, okay, then dash. You sober people, you feel well armed against passion and the fantasies. Okay, so you think you are sober, but it doesn't matter. Whatever you see, whatever you feel is real. Okay, that's no sober people or dreaming people. Okay, so to the end, he say, if you can forget your descent, your past, your training, so don't have your burden, your past to influence you. Okay, whatever is, there's no reality for us. What you see is the reality. There's no so-called quote unquote reality. So, and the last sentence is also interesting. Talk about our goodwill to transcend intoxication is as respectable as your faith that you are altogether incapable of intoxication. So it's difficult to analyze this one, but he seems talking about the sober people. They said, "Oh, I will not get drunk or not get," but actually, it's no difference. Okay, that's what I get. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, they're
And
both.
I would like to ask, anybody know what he mentioned about fish? Okay, compared to fish, why he talk about fish? That's another question I like to ask.
Oh, well, my feeling about that is that he's just trying to show that as dispassionate as you may think you are as you observe the world around you. And I don't know how many of you feel that from time to time, but there are times when I pat myself on the back because I understand that this is all symbols that I'm building in my head. And the real basic fundamental reality is way different than the kind of civilized space that I live in. And I think he's just trying to say, he's just using a fish. He could have used anything. I think the fish is just something he picked on at the moment because it is so alien to us and seems passion free. So you think you're passion free, but you're really not. you're engaged in a certain love of your own vision, and that love is based in something primordial. Hi, Fred. Hi, Christina. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
All right. So I guess you all agree with me, huh? Well,
I agree with you. So
all righty. All right. Well, then we can move on to 58. And I thought 58 is kind of a development of the thought that is presented in 57, that and the presumption here seems to be that the artists are the creative people who attach the names in the first place. And so that's what I think the last sentence means. But let us not forget this either. It is enough to create new names and estimations and probabilities in order to create, in the long run, new things. And I think the things are in quotes because in whatever reality may be, there are no things. There's just what there is. And we make things out of mountains and clouds and all that sort of stuff. And it takes an artistic imagination to create the image or the words that capture the image. And I think that's a little bit of a riff on what he's talking about in 57, that becomes the reality. Brad.
I think the gist is in his development of his notion that appearance becomes essence. I think Nietzsche was enough of a philologist that I'm sure he understood very well the evolution of the Greek word eidos from the Parmenidean monism through Anaxagoras and ultimately to Plato's dualism, where eidos originally means appearance, and then it comes to mean form, and finally it comes to mean essence. And therein lies a problem, and that when you start distinguishing between appearance and essence splits off from phenomena, you get into a whole stew of problems, typified by Descartes' dualism and so forth. And I think this addresses that. And the problems you encounter, you just can't get away from it. If you want to describe, for example, the essence of a particular apple, you might say, well, it's red and it's firm, and you stop. No, that's not the essence, that's the appearance. Those are empirical properties of it. So what's the essence of the apple? Well, it comes from seeds and generates, and you say, no, that's just cutting open the apple and describing attributes of the inside. What's the essence? And as much as you try to describe the essence of an object, it seems like you inevitably fall back on properties of its appearance. And Nietzsche could have very well developed an entire treatise on this, but instead he has this nice, tidy blurb which indicates the somewhat fuzzy relation between appearance and essence, and how appearance is eventually becomes essence, or more particularly, it acts as essence. And then we are nominalists, that we just create these names. We hang names on things and assume that thereby we've captured the thing. We don't really comprehend the thing, and we certainly don't comprehend its its essence. We're still in the world of appearance. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Well, we had an aphorism earlier, in the later part of book one, that sort of dealt with the same idea that challenged, well, not challenged, but sort of denied that there is a thing in itself. All there is appearance, and we turn it into, well, like you just said, um, somehow all of these qualities um, hide the real essence of the thing. And anyway, Barbara.
Well, it's a little confusing to me though, because he starts out by saying that appearance becomes essence. But then he says, what kind of fool would believe that it is enough to point to this origin and this misty shrouded delusion in order to destroy the world that counts as real? So he's saying that, well, one thing he might be saying is that this business of appearance becoming essence is just as real as, in other words, it's not real, even though we understand how it arose. Because and then he says, only as creators can we destroy. So he seems to be saying there's some input that people have to do continually to recreate the world. And that, I don't know if an apple's a perfect example, but maybe, you know, ideas are a better example of how things change, conventions change, ideas about what's right and wrong change, and that we have to, they only transform themselves with our input. So understanding the backstory of the old, let's say, convention doesn't mean that we can just dismiss it, that we're continually replacing it or recreating it with something else.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. That there is no reality to destroy in a way. It's just our perception or our thought or our concept or whatever that we may destroy. What is actually there, the one, I'm going to keep saying that because it's not that I believe that necessarily, but I think that's sort of what's behind some of those, is there no matter what you do, Jason.
Yeah, I like use a Fred as an example as an apple, right? So if you want to try to find the essence of an apple, actually only thing you can call is so-called appleness. Okay, so that's the essence. Then,
Yeah, that's right.
then it's back to the last word here, right? The thing, right? And if you connect with the previous section, he talked about the realist, right? Is something reality. You will see the reality also show up in this essence, this aphorism and the previous one talk about reality. So then when we talk about appearance and essence, then where's the essence, right? Then is that real? Well, then you go take one more step. Is that important to say it's real or in your dream? I put a note here is related to 54, okay, on book one, talking about dreamer, okay. And I think that's all connected together because he is talking about just like Fred's example, we keep adding the meaning of let's say apple. Even today, the apple means the this guy, the phone, right? So so that doesn't exist, let's say 20 years ago. Okay, that doesn't have this information. So what's the essence of Apple? So we keep adding on that. So we are the creator, okay, and the creator also a destroyer. So everything is you, okay, as a creator. And I think he also talked about artists. We are all artists. Okay, so I think that's all he want to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the thought just now that maybe even to use the word reality is an artistic act, because he keeps putting that in quotes. And that reality is just a thing, that a name that we attach to our immediate perceptions, I guess, or the things in the world. We're sort of trying to make a concrete sense of all of that as well, although I may be exaggerating that one. Any more? Any more? No?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Reality is in quotes, and so it's things in quotes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think one of the things that he's getting at is that we're telling ourselves stories, and we natter on about capturing the essence of things and defining reality and labeling this, that, and the other thing in the world. And really, we're kind of operating under an illusion, and our ideas get in the way of that. Right? Remember that the Greek eidos that I referred to is often translated, probably wrongly, as idea, because it's not just in our minds. And Plato's notion, world forms, there's an entire universe of these abstract forms, separate from our physical universe, that is not in our minds. So idea doesn't say enough, and idea is really this illusion that, what is he called? This misty shroud of delusion.
Yeah.
So he has a real way with words here, and I think that's what he's taking to task, the misty shroud of delusion that we have, as if we're in charge of reality and things and so forth, when in fact we didn't create them. So who are we to create or who are we to knock down reality as it's received, things as it's received? We didn't create it.
Oh, yeah. Well said. Well said. Anybody else have any thoughts on what we've done already? Barbara.
I wonder about that. I think he's saying we did create it, and that because he's saying that only as creators can we destroy. And it seems like what he's really, a lot of times when I think about the essence of something, I think that underneath its appearance, there's some fundamental mush that is real, and then the appearance isn't real, right? But he seems to be saying you can't ever get down that far. That before you get there, you are naming it, changing it, and then it stays for a while, but it morphs, and then you name it and you change it. So he's really saying that you never can dig down to the essence, because we're constantly creating, recreating, destroying the world that we live in.
Yeah, I think this is something of an attack on the whole notion of the thing in itself, Kant's thing in itself. So if you were to remove all of the sensory sensations that an object is sending out, what's there? And Kant believed there was something there. And Nietzsche seems to me to be coming clearly on the side of the appearance is all there is. There isn't any substrate that the appearance is attached to. The appearance is the thing, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction, Barbara, that just because we can't get down to it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That we kind of get lost in the mush, but that doesn't mean that the mush isn't there somewhere. We just don't have a complete conceptualization, which is what Kant is saying. And Nietzsche here is taking the opposite stance, that it's just not there, that we are just awash in a world of appearances, and that's that.
Yeah. And then I think 59, unless somebody's got any more to say about any of these, because I think these, well, I'm going to guess that you'll probably agree with me in a way. These are all tied together, these first three, just developing this whole sense idea. And let me see what my notes are on this one. The passions, the feelings they generate, drive us to ignore the base facts of science as an accurate description of reality in favor of illusion, and artists build new fictions. That was the note that I made about this. Because I think that's what he's trying to capture here in a way. I mean, and part of it is even like, I think, a scientific point of view. If you start like with physics, you can reduce everything now down to quarks and this and that, but none of that really means anything in terms of having a table, and it's almost incomprehensible to believe that this cup of coffee is really nothing but a lot of empty space for the most part. And so we just don't take that for granted in any way at all. It would be almost impossible to live in a space like that. And so and the artist of life, which I think he thinks most of us actually are, just ignores all of those things, because all that, what that does is it just sort of just reduces everything to just a bunch of electromagnetic phenomena spinning around in space. And we can't live that way. So we create the things that are real and ignore anything that contradicts that. And that's not so different from a person who believes in God. And I think this is a comment again on the Apollinian artistic impulse we are driven to create images and to block out the world. It's not like we have a whole lot of choice about the whole thing. This is part of who we are. And the last part of this, again, we ignore what is natural. We are moonstruck and God-struck. We wander still as death, unwearied on heights that we do not see as heights, but as plains, as our safety. And I think that's sort of what he's saying here, that we have to do this. And the Dionysian, again, is the reference in the first paragraph to the ugliness of the totality of the human being. And even ugliness is a word that we attach to a feeling. The feeling is the feeling, but we've named it, made it into something that we can talk about. So you all agree with me? Sometimes that provokes something and sometimes it doesn't. Oh no. I thought we would kill the whole hour on these three, but I guess we're not going to today. Jason.
Yeah, just like to be more provocative. So he said, when we love a woman, we easily conceive a hatred for nature on account of all repulsive nature function to which every woman is a subject. We prefer not to think all this, but when also. So I've been thinking about why he mentioned about women, right? But whatever you talk for past few minutes, you never mention about the first sentence. So seems he start from woman and then talk about love. I don't know how everybody think about this, why he bring this one. So I That's my opinion. I think it probably is related to previous few aphorisms about essence and appearance. So here he probably, I'm not very sure what he was trying to say on this one. He probably talk about I think that's why it's male society. Okay, the men love a woman because there's the essence of a woman because you love the essence of the woman, or a lady love a man because the essence of man, or the appearance of the man, or you love another person because the appearance or the essence of person. Okay, I think that's a good question, right? And then probably have a lot to talk about this, but look like he tried to touch a lot of different subject on this aphorism. Yeah, I stop here. So
Yeah, I think the use of the notion of loving a woman, and this always has to be taken in the sense that he is very much living in a patriarchal society. He does not have very much experience with women himself, and so a lot of these comments may appear haphazard and maybe even kind of nasty. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that he's right on target with setting this up so that it's easy to recognize how we discount the actual physiology of somebody that you may love. I think this could easily be switched back and forth. The way a woman would feel about a man, she's going to discount all the blood and guts and all the other stuff that constitute the total person. And you are dismissing part of that reality in order to sustain your sense of love or your passion. And the passion is what drives that ignorance in a way. Fred.
This and the next couple or three aphorisms, I mean, again, kind of naive here in that I take him at his word here, and he's just a misogynist. I think there's no getting around it. It's evident earlier, and we can't go further than this, so I won't talk about that. But it's even here, it's evident that he's singling out women. He says that every woman is subject to repulsive natural functions. I don't quite know what natural functions he's referring to, but he's not saying that every person is subject to that, every man and a woman. He's singling out woman. And when we get into 60 to 63 or so, it becomes more apparent that
Well, we're not there yet, though, Fred.
well, yes, I know, but even right here, it's apparent that he is stating that a woman is subject to repulsive natural functions. And so we come to hate nature because of that. How can that not be misogynist?
Because it goes both ways. He's not saying that only women. He's using that as a vehicle to put out the idea that, and he's right. He's probably presuming that most of his readers are men, and so they're going to be able to feel a little bit of this, to capture this idea that underneath. Well, here's what I think is the important part about. Let me see, where is it? We refuse to pay heed to physiology and decree secretly. I want to hear nothing about the fact that a human being is something more than soul and form. The human being under the skin is for all lovers a horror and unthinkable, a blasphemy against God and love. And I think he's generalizing. I don't think this is misogynistic at all. Not to say there won't be stuff down the road. I will give you that because we're going to find them. But I don't believe this is an example of misogyny. I really don't. I think if what he's saying is true of women, all they see is the same thing men see. They see the good stuff. They don't think about all the physiology of the human being. And even like your pet dog, you don't really think a whole lot about what's going on inside that dog. You just see the dog and the smile and the tongue out and the tail wagging. You don't think about all the stuff that's going on underneath. So I do not share your view about misogyny in this case.
Well,
Barbara?
I think you're accurate about the second half of this, but I don't know. The first half just very clearly says that the repulsive natural functions to which every woman is subject. It would just be highly misleading if you intended that to mean every person is subject. So yeah, I get what you're saying about the second part of that, and maybe further develops it to include men, but to start with, it's just simple misogyny. I don't see how you can get around it. And we'll find more examples of that today. Thanks.
No, I understand all of that, but there are some, birth is not pretty. It's not a pretty thing at all. And when the baby pops out, there's a placenta, there's an umbilical cord. There's a lot of pretty ugly stuff. And I think women may not, think of that as the way I just described it, but they don't want to think about men having to take a dump or going to the bathroom at all. That's not part of the image that they have in their heads, Barbara.
Well, I have to agree with Fred though, because to start this off with that idea of a woman who has repulsive natural functions, it's powerful because there's so much investment in making women look other than they look. Now I know that men's fashion changes the line of the body, and men have hairdos too, but women go to extremes with that, and their hair is something that's usually not natural at all. The body's really changed if they're wearing a corset, and then the skirt billows out, and it really changes the way the body looks. So the women are sort of a good example of how we, instead of understanding that they're human and have human functions, we turn them in, I don't want to say Barbie dolls, but we craft them in another image so that's totally apart from what they physiologically are, and what their bodies even look like. And so he might be just using that for effect.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you. I think he's using that as for effect, and I don't find it misogynistic.
Lindsay, can I make a comment here?
Hold on. It's like Christina's got her hand up, and then I'll call on you, Mark.
All right, thank you. I just can't put my hand up very easily.
Yeah,
Come back.
I figured that. No, I got it. Thanks for bringing that up, Christina.
Yes. Also, me too, I saw it in the first place when I first read it as misogynism, but I don't see it that way anymore. I think he uses women because a woman is object of attraction, of affection. If he was a woman writing, she would have written about man. So as you say, it goes both ways. And there is a saying that beauty is only skin deep. And in this paragraph is very apparent that you're not interested in what's under the skin, because it's not beautiful. Well, it could be, if you like that, if you are into Sorry, my English is not that
No,
visceral, colors and I don't know, because I saw a movie in which people the characters were interested in the colorful, arteries and vein anyway. But also here we see a fear. I see a fear of death, of decline, decrepitude. So that's why you want to live in this fantasy that the person, the object of your desire, is this magnificent, porcelain body, and yeah. So yeah, we live in our fantasies about the other one, because we don't want to see reality.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I think, well, I think the point, part of what he's trying to say here is that we are driven by our passions to do that. Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. So, natural functions to which every woman is subject. I tend to think he might be referring to menstruation. Um, not, and of course that's related to childbirth, but not every woman has a child, although probably most do. Um, and the kind of the physiological dividing line between a girl and a woman, I think, is menstruation. At least that's the way I think about it. And there's a long history of not in modern society so much, but in more primitive society of menstruation and the it's kind of persecution or separation depending upon the society, the ostracization of women that are menstruating, etc. I'm not saying that Nietzsche is advocating that. I'm just saying there's a lot of cultural sentiment, especially amongst uh, more patriarchal society, to kind of reject menstruation. And menstruation is an example of where what we're talking about, what's underneath the skin, comes out of the skin. And in general, people find blood kind of repulsive because it's associated with injury, pain, and death.
Yeah.
So I think that might be what he's talking about. As far as the issue of misogyny, um, I kind of I'm pretty sympathetic with Fred's argument. I don't really like the term misogyny so much because I find it a little bit moralistic. It's become so weighted. I prefer to think of it as male genderized sexual alienation. I know that's a mouthful, but I kind of like it because it sounds kind of a little less judgmental and a little more scientific. But I think Nietzsche, to me, and I agree with what Fred was saying. If he was talking more generally about people or animals or something, why would he? Why does he need to specify women? Um, just the fact that his audience is mostly men doesn't mean that he has to specify women with regard to this particular natural function. I mean, especially if he's talking about like defecation or something like that, then it really doesn't make sense to specify women. Um, yeah, so those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Barbara. I think Barbara sort of captured the notion, the idea that a man that a man falls in love with a woman or vice versa is a very specific thing that most people can identify with, and it's a vehicle to make his point, which is we ignore all the ugly stuff. Yeah, and I think misogyny is woman hating, and I don't think that he hated women. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think he did. And he just had a lot of mistaken notions about women generally, which was probably characteristic of the age he lived in. So I'm gonna hold back from declaring misogyny, and I really still don't think that's what's going on in this paragraph. I did not think of all the stuff that you did. I just thought of the same functions that men have that are just not very much fun to talk about or look at. Jason.
Yeah, we don't know. Well, if I have to bet, then I probably will bet Nietzsche is misogyny. It's misogynic, right? So, but we don't know. But I think what we need to judge when we read this one is the purpose of this writing, right? Is the purpose is misogynic or not? But my answer,
No.
I believe it's not. But that's another question of whether or not Nietzsche is misogynic, right? That's another question. That's a different question. So we can assume he is very misogynic. Okay, take this one as given and use this one to start to see what's his purpose of writing this one. So this is a misogynic person writing this philosophical essay, and you disagree? And then what I read is he used, or we will say wrongly, okay, political incorrectly used women as an example to talk about the essence and the appearance. I think that's his purpose on this one. And later on, he talked about the nature law, and I think he tried to talk about the moral law or some arbitrary will are more powerful, more important than nature law. I think that's all thing he want to talk about as a human. And he may not properly, he may use woman as an example incorrectly, but his purpose is try to talk about appearance and essence, the nature law and the moral law. I think that's what he want to say on this one. Yeah, that's
All right, that's included in there. I guess for once it shrugs and looks contemptuously at nature. I think I think it's something different. The purpose here is we prefer not to think of all this, the second sentence. But when our soul touches on these matters for once, it shrugs, as it were, and looks contemptuously at nature. We feel insulted. Nature seems to encroach on our possessions, and with the profanest hands at that. Then we refuse to pay any heed to physiology and decree secretly, I want nothing about the fact that a human being is something more than soul and form. I think that's really what he's trying to do here. And then he's making a bit of a comparison to a religious person who refuses to take science seriously because it disagrees. And I think he's just starting off with something that most of his readers will recognize, especially in his day. Fred.
I take your point, and Christina's as well. And by the way, Christina, I disagree with you that I think you speak English quite well. Anybody who uses words like decrepitude does just fine in English, and I appreciate your comments. So I get what you're saying here, that whether or not he's misogynist, I agree, that's not the point of this entire passage. And perhaps we can take it as his little example leading into a broader point. I think it's a terrible example to single out women as being repulsive, particularly since I don't know, I just disagree. I for one think childbirth is, for example, a wondrous, beautiful, mysterious, great experience. And having studied biology, I'm also in awe of the entire female reproductive apparatus compared to the male's brain dead, primitive reproductive apparatus, such as it is. But I can see that. Let's assume that this is Nietzsche talking for himself, leading in with an example from his own, to my mind, warped experience to a broader point, which I think is true about that he develops in the second half of this. So I get that. So I appreciate those comments. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, Christina, yeah, back at you. I second that. I'm sorry I didn't say it in the first place. I'm glad you were here. I really enjoy your input, and you do fine. You do just fine. So no worries. Okay, that's a wrap for today. I will fix up the next one and announce it within the hour. And what we'll do is probably the next several aphorisms are shorter than these, except the very first one, I think. So what I'm going to propose is 60 to 70. I don't think we'll get through all of those, but 60 to 70, and that's what'll be in the new one that goes out after this. So thanks for being here. I hope you all had a great holiday. And I did. I know that. So, okay. I'll see you guys. All right.
Bye.